All right, guys. Look, back out here in pads again today. Have an off day tomorrow for the players. And so I think it's a good time for an off day. Get our guys to recover just a little bit. We'll start later in the week, start kind of turning our attention a little bit more towards Arizona. I don't think we're at that point yet. Again, we worked some 2-minute situations. A lot of good situations came up today. So yeah, it was good. Kamara had a rest day. I know that's going to be the question. So Kamara had a rest day today. So everything's all good there. Yeah, so another good practice, I thought.
What was the 2-minute situation today? 1:15 left, timeout each?
End of game. End of game, down 2, so a little bit more stressful on the defense, in terms of, they're not having to gain really had to gain about 30 yards to get themselves into field goal range, so trying to create, some stressful situations on both sides of the ball. So I thought we operated in those situations really on both sides of the ball pretty well.
Dennis, Bryan Bresee said yesterday that things are slowing down for him in year 2. Are you seeing evidence of that?
Yeah, look, what I've noticed is a guy that looks different. I think he's changed his body. I think he looks like he's in better shape than he was when he first got here last year. I see more lower body power, so there's more balance when he creates contact with a blocker. So he's able to play a little bit more physical, which I think is an area that he's got to improve on. And and I think that's pretty typical for a younger player after they get a season under their belt. Man, here's what people don't realize. They go right from playing a college season and they go right into training for the combine and trying to get themselves ready for the combine, and then next thing you know, they're in an off-season program and they got a couple of weeks off, and then they're back into training camp, and it's like a little bit of a whirlwind for these guys. And so going into year 2, the season's over in January, you've got some time to kind of evaluate what you did well, what you didn't do so well, where are the areas that I can improve on, how can I get better. You identify those areas, and then you start to go to work on how am I going to improve in those areas. And so I think that's pretty common for a young player. And I've seen some growth in terms of that from Bresee.
I know Spencer's got a long way to go, but obviously, can you chart his progress, I guess, from spring to now, and how much a day like this can help him?
Who's that? Spencer Rattler?
To get the extra rep today.
Yeah, look, he got a lot of reps today, which was good to see. I think he's improving every day. There's still some things that he's doing that, we've got to just some. Understanding how to play within the scheme of the offense, how to get through your progressions, knowing how to listen to your feet, when to take your chances down the field, when it's time to check the ball down. All those things are pretty, good learning experiences. I wanted to put him in a situation, 4th and 5 there, in a move the ball situation, see if he could, execute and make a play. And he did. He made a hell of a throw on an out route. We get a first down in that situation. So I see some of that, confidence, which I think is good at the quarterback position. And yet, there's some times where I think we gotta, pull the reins back just a little bit.
Is this timing a lot better from the spring?
Yeah, and I think that's both him and the offense, the receivers, tight ends, all those guys are getting, a little bit better timing as they've had a chance to kind of work together a little bit.
This is the first time in a while that you guys haven't had a veteran to back up your starter. How do you kind of feel about just Jake and Spencer, and kind of through that lens?
Well, I think we got to let these preseason games play it out. I think we're trying to determine if we have a backup quarterback on our roster right now. I've seen some signs that I like, and yet, I want to get them into real live situations under the lights and see how both of these guys operate in that environment. So I'm encouraged by what I've seen out of both Spencer and Jake. And yet, we haven't made any decisions there, and I want to see what they operate like under the lights.
Dennis, I'd seen you make a similar comment like that the other day with these young backups. I mean, we've seen some teams around the league. You guys saw Tyson make it last year, a rookie with the Bears. I think Jake Luton got that. I mean, do you have a philosophy on the backup quarterback is you have to meet a certain threshold? You don't want to see young guys sinking or swimming in that role?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say I'm going to give these young guys every opportunity to prove that they're deserving of that role, and that comes through what you do out here on the practice field and what they're going to do when they get into preseason games. And so I don't think I've ever shied away from playing young players, and yet they've got to earn it, and so that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, what's been your assessment of the kickers?
I think it's been a good competition. I think both players have been a little bit more inconsistent than I would like right now. I mean, obviously, I'm expecting 100%, and so I think we still have work to do in that area. But both of them have talent, and I'm talking about just the field goal kickers right now. Both of them have talent. Both of them have really strong legs. Both of them have hit 60-plus yard field goals, and both of them have missed some ones that, we need them to make. And so I don't think we're settled at that position yet. I think we've got to, make sure that we've got a guy that we can count on in a critical situation to make the kicks that we need him to make to win games.
Dennis, what has been the experience having training camp here in Southern California?
Listen, I think it's been a good experience for us. Obviously, the weather's been probably exactly what I would have been looking for. I don't think it's been, too cool. Certainly hadn't been too hot. We're not dealing with a ton of humidity, so I think the weather's been awesome. I think, our setup at the hotel from a meeting room standpoint has been outstanding. I think our guys are able to kind of get away from some of the distractions that take place when you're at home, and they're really kind of able to focus in on, building a team, building a tough, smart football team, and building a team that's united together and willing to work and grind for each other. So I've enjoyed the experience.
Was getting away from the Louisiana heat, do you think that was going to help on the injury front? And being out here and having as many injuries as you guys do right now, has that been maybe slightly disappointing or anything like that?
Well, look, it's more than what I would like, certainly. But I also think this. I also think that, at some point you got to build some callus for the regular season. And some of this is the price of doing business, and we're going to do everything we can to try to avoid injuries as much as we possibly can, and yet that's the game that we play. And we're going to push them hard, and our guys are responding, and they're doing well in that regard. So there'll be a point where I feel like we're going to need to, back off just a little bit, try to get them back a little bit, but I don't think we're at that spot yet.
Dennis, would you say Willie Gay caught your eye a little bit today?
Yeah, look, I think Willie every day does something that catches my eye. I think with him it's just about being more and more consistent. There's a lot of splash plays that I've seen from him from an athletic standpoint that, that are really good plays. And then there's some things that, he's got to get corrected or else it's going to cause us some issues. So I just think really with Willie, it's more about the consistency. Here's what I love about Willie is he comes out to work every day. He's got a smile on his face. He works extremely hard. He knows what his challenges are, and he works extremely hard to try to get those things corrected. So, I think we're still in the process there with him, but yet I see improvement. I see, a guy from where he was in the spring to where he's at right now. I've seen some significant improvement.
Dennis, there's signs of tempo all the time that we notice. I'm not sure if this is something you've done in years past or a new drill this year. When you were had the whole defense out for the turnover drill, is that something you've introduced as part of the increased tempo this year?
No, that's a drill we've done. I don't think we usually let you guys into practice that early, so you probably haven't seen that drill. But yeah, but yeah, it's a drill we've done, and it's designed to try to increase the tempo a little bit, and also it's a turnover drill, and it's designed to kind of teach us what we need to do when we are able to take the ball away, and how we convert from being a defensive mindset to an offensive mindset and going to try to score on defense. So yeah, it's just one of probably a half a dozen drills that we do to start practice.
I have noticed, and maybe it's because we're not out here all the time, but a lot of running. There've been different sessions where you guys are sprint to this, sprint to this, sprint to this. Is there anything you've done to increase tempo, or not necessarily?
No, I think there's an increased sense of urgency with these drills. And I think, I read something where Tyron had said, we're going to play with way more attitude. And I think that's something that, we've tried to address, and that, defensively, I think there's another gear and another mindset that we have to get to, from a defensive standpoint. I think when you play good defense as we have here, I think there sometimes can be a little bit of comfortability with, that we're just going to kind of go back out there and play, good defense because that's what we've done in the past, and that's not the way this operates. And so I think there's been a renewed sense of, the philosophy behind the way that we play defense, and that's kind of what we're trying to get back to a little bit.
What are Ugo Amadi and Chandler Brewer 73 dealing with?
Brewer's got a tricep, and Amadi's a groin.
What does a day off look like for the coaching staff?
Not a day off. A lot of meetings. A lot of meetings, personnel meetings, talk about the players, talk about where we're at, who's doing well, who needs to improve, what areas do they need to improve in. There, a lot of that type of discussions, a lot of work on upcoming practices, getting those things planned, scripted, things of that nature, and then certain projects, special projects, we'll start working on, putting together game plans for Arizona. We've already been in the process of, kind of looking at our first, regular season opponents, and some of the things that they're doing, and some of the things that we can expect, and, how and when we can maybe start to incorporate, some things that we may want to utilize against, our upcoming opponents. So that's really what that looks like. There's it's a lot of meetings.
Y'all kind of use days off that way, like the players will get practice off. But how do you keep your coaches from burning out through the mental grind of training camp?
Yeah, well, look, here's the thing. When you start looking at regular season, and there's a lot of late nights and things of that nature, and in training camp, we get done with our walkthroughs, call it 7 o'clock, give or take, and we'll get back to the hotel, and coaches will, go through and watch the walkthrough, and make whatever kind of training camp cut-ups that they need for their players. But it's not one of these all-night, affairs. And then when you get to the day off, you're probably not starting quite as early in the morning, and usually we'll go through, till about dinner time, and then give guys some time, to maybe go grab some dinner together, or get an early, turn in for an early night. So it's kind of how you handle it during this time of year.
I guess you got to get used to it sometime. Doing it the next 6 months, right?
Yeah. Well, look, there's going to be plenty of time for that grind, and look, the reality is, both as a player and as a coach, the grind is these practice days. Man, we're putting in some significant work, both mentally and physically. Really from time we get up in the morning until we get through, mostly for the players through the walkthrough or whatever the case may be, and then we get to kind of take a little bit of a breath and kind of recover just a little bit. So certainly not the same dynamic as it is during the season.
I know you've been out here all day, but have you heard anything about Jake Haener and his procedure?
I have not heard anything on that yet. No.
In those meetings, do you take stock of, all right, here's who I think is winning the active quarterback competition, or is that something you're constantly thinking about, or is that is the day off a good time to kind of evaluate to see where things stand?
Yeah, no, I think look, you're constantly evaluating it, but I think the day off is really the time that we kind of get a chance to kind of sit back, reflect on what's happened the last 4 days. All right, we had one of these the last time we had a day off. You get a chance to sit back and reflect on where things are and what we're doing, both from an individual standpoint in a player evaluation and from a collective standpoint, position groups and each side of the ball, looking at where we're at collectively as a group, and what are some of the things we're doing well, what are some of the things we can improve on, what are some of the things that we want to emphasize, what are some of the things we want to kind of move away from a little bit. So, all right, thanks guys.
Thanks, Coach.